Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to try my skill at using mostly the items that come in the Space Marine Starter Kit. The only items that I will use do not come with it are a hobby knife, a pair of clippers, and a can of spray primer. The back of the box has your assembly instructions as well as the GW Basic Paint Guide. Now to open the box and see the contents. My first thought is the brush actually has a decent point for a starter kit. To start, we have our sprue with the miniatures, a starter brush that actually seems to have a really good point, there are your three bases for the minis, and now for the paints. Armageddon Dust is our base paint, gritty substance texture thing. McCraig Blue is the main color for this mini. I'm going to try to play around with a bit, both darkening and highlighting to see what I can do. Abaddon, or however you pronounce it, black is a nice black with a shiny finish to it. Agrax Earth Shade is the shade provided that I'm going to use to cover the metallics and the base to help define the textures. And then finally, Balthazar Gold is the metallic. It gives me more copper vibes than gold, but it looks nice on the flamer weapon. And finally, Corax White. This is the only paint that I didn't have in my collection and have never used. I'm interested to see what I can do with it. Now to clip the minis from the sprues and clean up the mold lines and extra bits of plastic with the hobby knife. Being careful not to cut myself. The push fit models are really easy to put together. Add it to the base and you're basically ready to get painting. And through the magic of video, the mini is primed. And a quick shake. Still impressed with the point on this brush out of the box. For my first layer, I'm going to use 4 parts of the McCraig Blue to 1 part of Abaddon Black, just to see what type of effect I can get. I was impressed with the shade of the blue I got too on top of the black primer. Next I am adding McCraig Blue by itself, avoiding the recesses to help make the raised parts stick out. I think the only thing I'm going to change next time I do this is using a very cheap homemade wet palette instead of this piece of plastic, which was just not fun to work with. Here you can see the definitions between the lighter and darker areas pretty well. I'm going to attempt the eyes with the brush. As you can see, the tip is already starting to curl on me a little bit. Still managed to do decent. It can also be really tricky when you have very shaky hands like I do at certain times. I wanted to see if I could push the highlights a little bit more by adding Corax White to McCraig Blue. Previously tried a bit more of a sketch style with a glaze over top, but it didn't turn out nice, so I recovered it with McCraig Blue and started this process over. At this point, the tip of the brush is starting to deteriorate and not hold up well. It's starting to get a little frustrating. I am also painting some of the areas white that I will cover in the metallic to see if they are brighter at all. I don't think it really made a difference. A quick cleanup around the edges of the white to make it look better. Having shaky hands makes it a lot more interesting. I also had to clean up the gun and pouches with a coat of black. Next, I mixed up the blue paint with water to make a glaze. You can see on my thumbnail where I tested it out to try to get the consistency I was looking for. I did a couple coats of a glaze over the blue of the entire Mini to get it a little bit smoother. I find that Balthazar Gold covers really well, and I only really needed one coat of it on the areas that I painted. To apply the Armageddon dust, I just cut off a piece of sprue and used that straight from the pot, but unfortunately I lost that vial. I like to use a nice heavy coverage of the shade over top of these earth textures. I was also interested to see what would happen if I added Corax White to the Balthazar Gold. It made a little bit of a nice highlight, but still nothing compared to a really good silver. I also lost the clip of where I did a little bit of NMM style on the black of the gun. I basically made a couple of lighter grays, sketched them up, and then did a heavy black glaze over top of it. The point of the paintbrush is just horrible right now, and I'm still going to attempt to touch up the eyes a little bit. And then as the final step, I put some Abaddon Black on the rim of the base. And here is the finished model. I'm quite pleased with what I was able to do considering the limitations, and thank you for watching, and I hope it inspires you to hobby.